Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Beyond the Cage podcast presented by Fight Chicks. I am your host. Alongside me is Dave the Juice Sadler. I am Jim Graham, and we have another fun-filled, action-packed show for you here on Beyond the Cage. We got UFC 177 to talk about. We got UFC Fight Night 50. We have Bellator 123 and Invicta 8 to preview on today's show. Now, we're actually going to do something a little different. We're going to start with a breakdown of a fight because it kind of has a big headline attached to it that will lead into the breakdown. And if you don't know what I'm getting at UFC 177 and all the situations surrounding that. And that's why I really want to start with UFC 177. First with the headline, Dave, and then we can get to the fights and obviously the main event fight that this headline affected. And that is the fact that Renan Barão, just, I guess, minutes after making weight at UFC 177, it would have been last Friday in Sacramento, just the weight cut was so much of a drain on his body this time around that he actually passed out after making weight. And because of that, the doctors felt that that was a sign that he probably shouldn't fight the next day. And his fight was looked to be canceled. At least him fighting was canceled. So the UFC, in an effort to salvage the card because they weren't going to cancel it the day of or the day before, people had already bought tickets. It's too late, I think, to do a refund and all that. They moved up Joe Soto from the undercard, who was the former Bellator featherweight champion, now fighting at 135 and has been in the UFC. I think he's had one fight prior. I'd have to double check that, but he moved up to the main event for a title fight on roughly 24 hours notice, and afterwards Dana White was really blasting, Renan Barão. Renan Barão didn't get paid for the event. I mean, he didn't fight and all that. So there's a couple different things that you can kind of go off this, Dave. First, let's start just from a promoter standpoint. One, do you like the fact that they kept Dillashaw on the card and had him fight another opponent? Two, did you like the fact that it was someone from the undercard and not someone completely new that they brought in? And I guess my third point would be, do you like the fact that it was still a title fight and maybe not changed to, say, a 5-round main event fight or a 3-round main event? Those are the three questions I'll hit you with here off the bat before I give my answer, Dave.
All right. Well, I just want to clarify one thing. Renan Barão never made weight. That's why he didn't get paid. When I read in the report, that's what Dana said. He never stepped on the scale to weigh in, so that's why he never got paid, which I completely agree with.
My apologies. I thought it was after he had made weight that he passed out. I didn't realize it was in an attempt. My apologies to all the listeners, and then there, Dave once again fact checks me correctly, so we are correct. But anyways, continue, Dave.
No, because if he makes weight, he gets paid. But I go back. But to your questions, couple different things here. Do I like that they kept the fight? Yeah, they had to. They were in Sacramento. Like Dana said, they only got 130 people who refunded their tickets because of the change. And like he said, it was probably a bunch of scalpers that, couldn't sell those tickets, that they got the free money back. So what was the other one? Am I happy that it was somebody on the card?
Yeah, not somebody like they just brought in, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they were screwed because this isn't like an amateur fight where you can, hey, you guy in the crowd there, would you like to fight? These guys have to apply for licenses, and for instance, if Eddie Wineland, if they wanted to let him step in, he's in Indiana the day prior. He has to be on weight, get a license, all that stuff within 24 hours. It's pretty difficult. And, you're never going to have the next person in line that ready to go. Could they have brought Cruz in? Yeah. Well, Cruz is the headliner of the undercard of UFC 178. So, then you're going to scrap all that. So, Soto was a pretty game replacement. The problem is, like we've said before, none of these guys are built up. People don't know these people. if you're not on that, like on that poster behind you, if you're not one of the top guys and, your picture's plastered everywhere, they don't know who Joe Soto is. They don't know who, looking ahead here, you know, a lot of people don't know that girl that Misha Tate's getting ready to fight. So UFC needs to do a better job of building stars for this instance. And what was the third question?
I think I said, do you like the fact that it was still a title fight, or do you think it maybe should have been changed to a non-title fight?
Well, I think the UFC was screwed because what if Soto would have won the belt? What if the UFC books this as a non-title fight and Joe Soto walks out there and just steamrolls TJ Dillashaw? Oh, you just beat our champion on 24 hours notice, but it didn't count. Go back and be a part of the top. You got to take a top 10 fight, and then you can fight for the belt again. So if they were going to go forward with it, it had to be a title shot. There was no way that they could make it a non-title shot, in my mind.
All right, now you said because Brow didn't make weight, he didn't get paid. So in that instance, that makes complete sense. And honestly, Dave, even if he had made weight and the same thing happens, he passes out, he can't fight, I actually don't even see a problem with not paying him then. Because to me, you're getting paid to fight. If you're not fighting, you shouldn't get paid.
Yeah, but the way the contracts are written is like, if a guy comes in, you get 8,000 to show, and then 8,000 if you win. And 8,000 to show is you come in at the contracted weight. So if he comes in at the contracted weight, then he lived up to that end of the contract. He should get paid. He clearly won't get his win bonus. Like, we interviewed Anthony Burchak back when he was in the MFC, and he got bumped off this card because he was supposed to fight Soto, and Soto got promoted up. Well, I'm pretty sure Burchak was at weight. They gave him his show and his win because the UFC can do that. So, but I think that they made sure he was at weight before they did that.
Well, and that's a different instance because to me, he's not fighting because of the organization. He's not fighting because of himself. And that, to me, that's a different thing. In that case, the UFC should pay Anthony Burchak for not fighting.
That's
now,
true.
in the Brow thing, now if his contracts, now again, this is the era of contracts. So the contract stipulates once he gets weight, he's considered ready to fight, even if afterwards he's not cleared, and then he should be paid whatever his show money is or a percentage because he didn't actually fight. That's fine because that's contract stuff. You can't get around that. But what obviously, like you said, Dave, he wouldn't have got his win bonus, and he wouldn't have got any bonus money from pay-per-view by point sales, which he gets as one of the headline guys and a former champion. So he didn't. So he wouldn't have got those bonuses anyway. So for him, obviously, I'm sure the UFC probably covered the cost of his, plane ride and all that, and hotel from, Brazil to California. So it's not like, he completely lost money on the deal. He didn't gain any income. And again, I think that's the right. I think how Dana White was treating him afterwards, I don't think was warranted. I think not paying him, sends the message, right?
Yeah. How do you like it when you work for 8 hours and don't get any money?
I mean, yeah, if I showed up into work, and they're like, well, you didn't do your job correct today. We're not going to fire you, but we're not going to pay you. I would go, okay. I may not like it, but I can understand it. But then, I think some of the words for harsh. I mean, this guy, let's remind people, one fight ago was on a 9-year winning streak and was the undisputed #1 fighter in the world at 135 pounds.
Well, I was going to ask.
You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden he's garbage, or so, you know what I mean? Like, the guy is still very talented. It just as so seems that his future in the organization may be a little uncertain, and it's probably definitely not at 135 pounds anymore.
Well, let me ask you this question, Jim. I'm actually, yeah. And Henan Brow, he made $74,000 in his last TJ fight, so that's a loss. But anyway, I was going to ask you this because I thought the exact same thing that you just said about um, how one fight ago he was unstoppable, the biggest winning streak of all time, and yada yada yada. Remember, like 3 or 4 fights ago, when he wasn't Dana wasn't completely sold on the idea of Renan Barão. Before he had gone through, um, you know, about the time he got to Uriah, the one in Calgary that was kind of a blah fight. He still wasn't like, he hasn't been real dominant. Dana just wasn't on board. But then he got on board when he realized he had to promote Renan Barão, for the Renan Barão TJ fight or for the second Uriah fight. And he kind of, he started to get on board. But I wonder if this is kind of an opportunity for Dana to jump off board. That, maybe he wasn't 100% committed to the whole, pushing Renan Barão idea.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like I said, the fight where he became the interim champion, eventually the actual champion, wasn't that great against Uriah Faber. He had a dominant performance, but it wasn't the most exciting fight. Then he went out his next 3 fights and finished all of his opponents in his title defenses, finishing Michael McDonald, finishing Uriah Faber, and and finishing Eddie Wineland.
I was going to say that's good that you're skipping those.
Yeah, and so by heading into the Dillashaw fight, Dana had to feel pretty good because he went from a guy he wasn't sold on to having 3 straight successful title defenses, all with finishes. So heading into the Dillashaw fight, he had to feel pretty good. And then
Right.
the Dillashaw fight was great because Dillashaw had a great performance and he got the finish, not necessarily what Barão did. And the only reason Barão got the rematch is because Rafael Assunção was still not ready to go to rematch TJ Dillashaw, who, let's remind people, he already beat. So so we can blame this whole situation on Rafael Assunção.
Maybe Rafael Assunção, he put like some sort of substance right outside of the sauna to make Renan Barão fall, so that TJ Dillashaw could roll through his opponent, so that Assunção could then get the title shot. It's a clever ploy.
I mean, they're both down there in Brazil. We don't know what goes down on there.
One other point, Jim. I think Dana is 100% correct. That gym down there, not Jim Graham, that gym, 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 like, gym, training gym.
Right, that's the Nova União.
Yeah. Jose Aldo and Renan Barão make pretty good money. How can they not make weight? Like, it would be completely different if, like, not that Doug's guys don't, but the guys at Team Genesis, if somehow those guys missed weight, they don't have like a multi-million-dollar nutritionist. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's probably a bad example, but those guys, they're always on weight. But what I'm saying is, Jose Aldo's headlining pay-per-views from all around the globe, tons and tons of money. They don't have one guy that can make sure that those guys are cutting weight the proper way. I mean, Renan Barão cuts a lot of weight. To me, if I had that kind of money, the one guy that I would pay for would be the nutritionist to just come down there, cook the meals, make my weight cut super, super easy. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I think Dana was on point with what he said, that they need to get a nutritionist and figure out what's going on down there.
Well, real quickly, obviously, as I said, it seems as though this is probably the end of Renan Barão fighting at 135 in the UFC. He projects now to fight at 145. As you mentioned, his teammate and friend, Jose Aldo, he's already the kingpin of 145, and who knows what, I don't know what's going to happen with him against Chad Mendes the second time around, but win or lose, that could end up being his last fight at 145. There's already been talks several times about him moving up to 155, and if Barão enters the division, kind of much like Daniel Cormier did for Cain Velasquez, do you think Aldo, to appease his buddy, that's why he moves up to 155. You know, it's a twofold reason. Hey, my buddy's fighting here. I'm not going to fight him. I'll move up to 55, and now I don't have to cut as much weight. I think that's probably what happens coming up here next.
Yeah. That's probably the most likely scenario. But I think a lot of it's going to depend on the Mendes fight. I mean, clearly, he's not just going to leave the division if he's the champ. But I also subscribe to the same philosophy that Dana said, that, you know, these guys say that they're not going to fight each other because they train with each other every day and all that kind of stuff. But when money starts going around and Renan Barão has an opportunity to fight for a belt, you know, how hard is that, or how tight is that friendship? You know, I'd fight you for a belt.
Yeah, I mean, it's not personal. It's just business. That's what you do. So
I'd fight you for a Mountain Dew.
Would it be a Baja Blast?
We don't have those here.
You don't have those here. You don't have a Taco Bell?
We do.
There you go.
But
all right.
I eat nothing but the highest quality of foods.
Oh, okay. All right. I forgot you have the multi-million-dollar nutritionist at your house, so that's right.
Yeah. See? Le Papa Tart.
Oh, man, that's high in calories, so that's good for you right there.
Yeah, but I'm getting ready to bust out like a 14-mile jog.
Okay. Well, you'll burn that off pretty quickly then.
Yep. See?
All right, well, let's stick with 177, but let's get to the fights at UFC 177. First fight of the evening was at 155 pounds as Yancy Medeiros, and he took on Damon Jackson, newcomer to the UFC. And even though you and I, Dave, we maybe went against our normal judgments, you and I don't pick UFC newcomers too often, but we felt with the grappling pedigree of Jackson, who has had a lot of submission victories to his credit, and obviously Medeiros not being so great in the grappling department, we thought that maybe that he has a chance to kind of steal an upset here and get a win on his first ever fight being on a pay-per-view card. But that wasn't the case, as Medeiros did an excellent job of stopping the takedown. And once he stopped the takedown, Jackson was being aggressive, but he left a lot of open holes, and Medeiros, much like he did in his Eve Edwards fight, showed that he has tremendous stand-up, great combinations, and a lot of power. And eventually that power just kind of started to wear there, and in a scramble that got up in a clinch, and then he was able to hook in a guillotine, but then in trying to escape, Jackson kind of turned one way, Medeiros turned the other, and it led to a reverse guillotine where the referee had to come in and stop this one. And I can safely say, Dave, after watching fights for about 8 years now, I have never seen anything like that. And a spectacular finish and a great bounce back for Yancy Medeiros to finally get his first official win in the UFC.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. That's one of those submissions. Like, I saw a calf slicer when I was in Chicago at the Fox card. And I was like, what the heck is that? It was the perfect start to a pay-per-view card that had this much hate and animosity going towards it, because what do we have? One decision on the main card, I think it was, and then we had crazy submissions, some knockouts, we had everything. And we thought that this one could be boring, and we questioned why it would lead off the pay-per-view. But Sean Shelby and Joe Silva coming through in the clutch, putting two good guys in there, and look, reverse guillotine. How cool is that?
And that started off a string of 3 straight fights that ended up finishing in the second round. So that will lead us into our next fight, also in the lightweight division, as Carlos and Dave, I got to make an amendment here. I have no idea how they were calling him Ferreira, which is the exact same last name spelling as Cesar Ferreira, also from Brazil, the former Ultimate Fighter Brazil winner, and yet he's Ferreira and Carlos Diego here is Ferreira. I can't win on these pronunciations. And then you have, we'll get to just a second, Betch Correa, which, you just change a couple letters there in the front. That looks like it should be Correa. It's not Correa. It's Correa. Anyways, so that got me flustered watching the fight anyways, that he was going by Ferreira, but maybe that was just an aberration by the announcers. Anyways, he fought Ramsey Nijem, former Ultimate Fighter runner-up, and once again, Dave, Ramsey Nijem, good stand-up, but leaving a lot of openings, being too aggressive. And he got too aggressive against Carlos. He got in close. He got hit with a huge shot, knocked him down, and he was able to go in there and finish him. Mr. Ferreira there, second round, 153. And this is Nijem just still being raw and just kind of leading with his head sometimes. He's leaving too many openings. And, I know they said it takes, several years to learn striking if you're coming from a grappling background. I get that. But leaving yourself wide open, that's learned on day one. And it's just something that he's done time and time again. And once again, he gets knocked out. Yeah,
it's, I'm not going to say it's simple stuff, but it's stuff that can get corrected easily. And it's just a matter of applying it when the fight actually goes down. I like Ramsey, a little over aggressive is probably not the right, but just, like you said, left himself open, and as you climb the ranks in any division in the UFC, guys are going to take advantage of that stuff. And, like I said, I think it's an easy fix. I think that he's well-rounded enough everywhere else that he can dedicate quite a bit of time in his next camp to striking and to defending strikes. And, it snapped a 2-fight win streak for Ramsey, but he'll be back. And for Carlos Ferreira, that's a solid victory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to bash him, but it's, one time, you can kind of go, all right, he got caught, maybe he was a little wild in the instance, but this is not the first time Ramsey Nijem has been knocked out, and this is not the first time he's kind of gone in there wild and crazy. Even kind of in his last fight, which he eventually did get the win, he was kind of wild and crazy against Dariush a little bit there. So This is something, he has a good camp there at the Pit Elevated in Utah. And, our good friend of the show, Rad Martinez, used to train up there. We know Steven Seiler goes through there. Most of the training that Glover Teixeira does, he goes through there, and not, the Pit over in California. And, another Ultimate Fighter winner, Court McGee, trains out of there. There's guys there that can show him some better techniques. That's a fact.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next fight of the evening in the female bantamweight division as Betch Correa took on Shayna Baszler. First round, Dave, this went just as Shayna Baszler and her training camp was drawing this up. Get in close, get this thing to the ground, and try to use your submission skills to your advantage against Correa, who is not as great in that category. And she was able to do that in the first round, really handcuff Correa, who was not able to get off her stand-up. She staved off the submission attempts, Dave. She did enough not to get submitted, but definitely that round went to the Queen of Spades. And then the second round, you heard the Pitbull brothers in their corner. They're like, you got to get in there aggressive, get in her face, and start throwing punches and bunches, because if you slow down, she's going to grab onto you and draw you to the ground, and you don't want to do that. And she just came out guns a-blazing in the second round and just started blitzkrieging Shayna Baszler, who, once again, doesn't have much on the feet and didn't really have much defense against Correa in this from her punches and kicks. And, man, she was putting those body shots on her, giving the Santa Fe lean to her. I mean, man, it was going crazy in there with those shots, and eventually the referee had to come in and stop this one, Big John McCarthy, at the 156 marker in round number 2, with Baszler just getting pummeled, standing up with her back against the cage. And now Betch Correa, undefeated still in the UFC. Her winning streak continues, undefeated in her career, and of the so-called 4 horsewomen of MMA, she's already beaten 2 of them, and she's looking for the big dog, the leader of that group, in Ronda Rousey. And I don't think she gets her next, but doing this puts her on a shortened path to getting Ronda.
And that's absolutely ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. She's 9-0 in her career, 2 finishes out of 9 fights. Julie Kedzie, who was on her way out, she had a split decision against. Jessamine Duke, who, whatever, Ultimate Fighter, she decisioned her, and then Shayna Baszler, who hasn't won a fight since before you graduated college, she beat her. But because she can put her four fingers up, the MMA world is going absolutely nuts that she should have a shot at Ronda. Are people not bored enough with Ronda beating people in 15 seconds? She would run through Betch Correia in about 6 seconds. I think Ronda's game, she would kill. I hate Ronda, and she would kill Betch Correia. Absolutely murder her. But I was watching the press conference afterwards. I can't believe, Jim, that these people get credentialed to UFC and they can go to the press conferences and ask questions. And they ask Dana White if Betch Correia should get a title shot. You get paid to cover this sport, and you think that Betch Correia deserves a title shot? And I'm taking like my love for Kat Zingano to get a title shot. I'm taking that completely out of it. There's 15 other people who deserve a title shot. Betch Correia is a great talent, but do you remember the fight, the one that was on the Hunt Bigfoot card against Julie Kedzie?
I remember all her fights. Yeah, I'm not saying she should get a title shot. I definitely think she needs definitely one, if not two more fights, because she hasn't beat anybody in the top 10. I mean, the only reason like I said, it's a great story and it's an easy sell for the UFC if in fact she is ready for a title shot because of this horsewoman thing. That's I think nobody can argue that point. It's an easy sell for the UFC when it comes up. And you talk about building stars. That's a way to build stars, and that's an added angle. Give her a couple more fights though, because she has to beat somebody in the top 10. She hasn't done that. She's got to beat a Jessica Ai, a Sarah McMahon. You throw out Kat Zingano, Misha Tate. She's got to beat somebody that somebody knows. So far, she's beaten. Jessamine Duke's a hot prospect, but let's not get reminded here. Jessamine Duke has under 5 professional fights, or has like exactly 5. Like you said, Shayna Baszler hasn't won in like 4 or 5 years. Julie Kedzie, that was her last professional fight. It ended up being her last pro fight. So while it's impressive, and also there's only one finish in that span too, in the UFC fights, and then there's only one other finish overall for a whole entire career. So it's not like she's going out there and looking super impressive, getting a whole bunch of finishes too. And that's another thing. So while she's a tremendous talent, she came back from a little adversity, went out there and got the finish victory. She still needs a few more fights.
Yeah. And just to go off, if somebody comes into the UFC and their record before they get to the UFC is 7-0 and they have 6 finishes, giving that person a top 5 title shot, or a top 5 person, doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. Coming into your career 6-0 with 1 finish, that's a completely different story. The one was Betch Correia, the other one was Kat Zingano. Kat came in with a bunch of finishes. It's a little easier sell when she's steamrolling people. But when Betch is just she's looking impressive, but she can't seem to get the finish, to me it's a harder sell. It is a cool story with the 4 and now it's 2, but that one grinds my gears.
All right, let's move to the next fight of the evening, which was the co-main event at 155 pounds as Tony Ferguson took on Danny Castillo. This ended up being the only fight on the main card that went to a decision, and this was a close fight. It was kind of the old adage, control versus damage. And if you look at the numbers, just at the striking totals, Tony Ferguson outstruck Danny Castillo 71-30. In takedowns, Castillo landed 2, but those were only of 8 attempts, and he landed a takedown in the second and third round. And I think the first round was definitely Tony Ferguson. The second round, that was really a toss-up because Castillo did have some ground control, but Ferguson also had some time on the feet where he was definitely outlanding Danny Castillo. That one was very close. That one could have went either way. And then in the third round, I think Danny Castillo's control for the majority of the round would have gave him the third round. And I think overall I would have went with Tony Ferguson. I probably would have gave him that second frame. So I would have had it 2 rounds to 1. The judges had it that way, two judges to 1 judge in favor of Tony Ferguson, who got the split decision victory, much to the disappointment of the hometown fans there in Sacramento for Danny Castillo. But at the end of the day, it's a damage thing. Tony Ferguson did more damage in this fight. He was doing more things to try to finish this fight, and Danny Castillo, while he had areas of control where he was on top and in a position of trying to win the fight and an advantage, he wasn't doing a lot with it to try to get out there and get the finish, and I think that's why El Kukui got the judge's nod.
Is there a more fan-friendly guy than Tony Ferguson? I don't think there is. That wasn't a rhetorical question. You were supposed to answer that. But anyway, it's a live show. I'll keep going.
No, he's a pretty friendly guy. I think so.
No, I mean, this guy went out there. How many is that in a row for him?
I think that's 4.
Yeah, I'm going back just to double check. But anyway, Tony Ferguson, here we are. He wins the Ultimate Fighter. This puts him on a 3-fight winning streak. And, was it the best performance ever against Danny Castillo? No. But all of his fights coming in, he hates decisions. And he goes out there, he's always working, he's always trying to get a finish, which makes his fights always exciting. And, he wins a fight, should be happy as you could possibly be. And all this guy talks about is, I'm going to get back in the gym on Monday. I want to bring more wrinkles to my game, improve, do stuff to make the fans happy, make Dana White happy. And it's an easy guy to root for. There's been a couple of those recently that have fought, easy guys to root for. But Tony Ferguson's definitely won. And, I wouldn't mind seeing a fight. Ariel asked him who he would like. He said he would love to try to revenge his loss against Michael Johnson. I'd love to see that fight again.
I think that would be a good fight, and also maybe like Miles Jury would be a good one as well. Yep.
I do like the Miles Jury. And the good thing, Miles Jury fights in 2 weeks, so they're kind of on the same time frame there.
Well, we'll see. I think that would be a good fight as well, and we'll see what happens. But Tony Ferguson, I think, definitely deserves somebody in that kind of area, that just between maybe 8 and 15.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. He is. I don't know if they've been. I don't think that the rankings on the UFC's page have been updated, but he is currently not top 15.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, we'll see what happens. But Tony Ferguson, definitely, it was a performance that was kind of a little frustrating at times because Castillo does have that wrestling background, and I think showed that, if you have some wrestling skills, you can get Ferguson down. Because I think one thing we did learn about Tony Ferguson is that, he's not getting up right away off his feet, and that's something he's going to have to work on. It's one thing to get taken down, and I think Carlos Condit's a perfect example of that. He's a guy that gets taken down, but he's a guy that can get back up to his feet rather quickly. And I think Anthony Pettis is the same way. And if you get taken down, that's one thing. But if you can get back up quickly, to me, it almost negates that takedown. And I think that's the one hole in Tony Ferguson's game. And as he gets higher up, especially in this division at 155, there's a lot of strong guys who can do that. I mean, look at the former champ, Ben Henderson. That's one guy who can put just about anybody on his back. You throw in the Ovs there, the Hobby Lov and the Nurmagomedov. Those are guys who can put you on your back really quickly too. So that's something that will have to be corrected. But that's about it. That's the only really negative from his performance.
Yeah, the one thing too about about Ferguson, the judges don't. They need to, but the judges don't seem to care when guys are active on their back, and more judges need. I mean, yeah, if he can't get up, that's Tony Ferguson's problem. But if Tony Ferguson is doing work on his back, um, some of those fighters need to be credited for that. Wasn't there a female fight just recently where one of the girls she was working hard from the ground, she couldn't get up. But I'm not saying you can win a fight from your back, but you ought to get a little bit of credit for, working from your back.
I think you're talking about the fight that was on the prelims, Lauren Murphy against Sarah McMahon.
Yeah, was that on this card?
Yeah. And Lauren Murphy
I
was
thought it
definitely doing some damage from her back. I mean, I'm sure there are other examples, but I remember, Lauren Murphy was definitely working pretty hard off his back, or her back.
Yeah. I digress.
Well, let's get to that main event, Dave. We already talked about the scenarios around it. Joe Soto was in, Renan Barão was out, and I think two things. Joe Soto, very game competitor, but at the end of the day, if your opponent's throwing 7 punches and you're throwing 1 or 2 back and shelling up, you're going to have a hard time winning that fight and trying to land that one lucky punch. And to me, that was the story of this fight, was Joe Soto was, throwing less combinations, and Dillashaw was being in his face, being aggressive, throwing a lot of punches, not throwing as many kicks, but great combinations. A lot of them were being blocked, to be honest. But the fact that the threat was in there, going there, I think he just kind of wore Soto down and eventually was able to get some bigger openings as the fight went on, land those power shots, and get the finish in the 5th round to, solidify his championship. And it would have been nice had it been Renan Barão to really put a stamp on it, Dave. And, there's going to be a little bit of doubt heading into his next fight. He didn't really fight, for the title. He didn't really fight somebody highly ranked. But at the end of the day, he fought a guy in the UFC, a solid guy, a former world champion in another organization, and he was able to go out there and get a finish victory and look just as impressive as he did when he won the title.
Yeah, I think that part of Soto's problem was twofold. He trained for a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight. And going in there guns a-blazing, I don't think would be the smartest game plan. The game plan that he had probably wasn't the smartest either. But me personally, after seeing the fight, I really wouldn't mind seeing that fight again on full camps for one another, with less of the circus around it. I think Soto has skills. I didn't really know Joe Soto from his Bellator days. And, that's got to be crazy to have the possibility of being in deep waters, 5 rounds. You thought you were just going to be on Fight Pass, and there's a lot that probably goes into it. If that fight happens on a week notice, I bet we see a completely different Joe Soto, or 6 weeks, or a month, or, terrible situation for Soto. But Dillashaw took advantage of. He did exactly. That was a lose-lose fight for Dillashaw, and he did exactly what he needed to do.
And just real quickly to show my point, Dillashaw threw 461 strikes in that fight.
That's a lot.
Joe Soto threw 198.
How many did TJ land?
He landed 156 to just 63 for Soto. And I understand that's not like a great percentage, but at the end of the day, if you're putting up 461 strikes in a little over 20 minutes, that's pressure. Your arm, even though your arms are taking it, that's damage that your arm's taking. I bet by the end of that fight, he couldn't throw because his arms were tired from all the blocking he was doing. That takes a toll on you, getting hit that many times. I mean, and that's just constant pressure. I mean, 461, that's just thrown. Like that. We've seen some crazy. We think if you can get in the high 200s, that's pretty good. But 461? I mean, we thought Bisping threw a lot of punches at Kung Lee, Dave. What did he throw, like 250? Dillashaw threw double that. That's crazy.
I bet the guys at Fight Metrics were they're like, can you guys slow down just a little bit? We're trying to count here.
I mean, that's almost 100 thrown strikes around, Dave. That's 20 strikes thrown every minute. If you can throw 20 strikes a minute,
Here, ready? Ready?
you have a good chance of winning, right?
Can you see it? I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going.
So, I mean, it's hard not to like T.J. Dillashaw. I mean, you put up numbers like that, you're going to be successful in this sport, and T.J. Dillashaw showed that last Saturday night.
Hey.
So, yes, Dave.
Before we move on, are we switching topics? Headlines, Invicta?
We'll do a little Invicta preview next.
Okay. Hey, so my phone's going off, and I'm getting these notifications from Cody Bollinger. Cody is on Twitter as we speak. Favorite country song, Jim? Go.
Friends in Low Paces by Garth Brooks.
Ironically, I put anything Garth Brooks, and he favorited it. So, strong word.
More or less, it's pretty much. Well, I guess if you count Johnny Cash's country, I think you can go anything Johnny Cash, right?
Yeah, and just a reminder, I am going to that concert on Saturday, so please tune in on Tuesday to see me with no voice. Tuesday or Wednesday.
All right, let's get to a little Invicta preview here. Invicta 8 coming up this Saturday, Kansas City, Missouri, once again. And finally, we get to see some Invicta fights, Dave. And, of course, as Dave's showing off there, his Welcome to the Hurt Business, his Fight Chick shirt, they will be there live and in person, not only sponsoring fighters, but selling gear. So if you like the gear Dave and I have been showing off for Fight Chicks, or if you see on their website, fightchicks.com, you can go there in person and check out some of their gear.
Do I have to speak for them to see my shirt?
Right, yeah. And we're also going to try to get some of the Fight Chick athletes from the card on the show here after the fight. So we got that coming on. But just looking over this card, Dave, again, one of those Fight Chick athletes, she is Peggy Morgan. She was on the Ultimate Fighter, Ronda Rousey against Miesha Tate. She will be taking on Irene Aldana. She's one of the Fight Chick athletes. She'll be fighting in at 135 pounds. Also looking over this card, Dave, you got Charmaine Tweets coming back. She's taking on Veronica Rothenhausler. Looking at some of the bigger fights, you got Roxanne Modafferi. She takes on Tara LaRosa. That should be a big-time fight. You also have Michelle Old against Deanna Bennett. And some of the bigger fights, Adine Gomes will take on Tanya Evinger. Then the two main event fights, or the co-main events, as you will, Stephanie Egg Inc. will take on Katja Kanakampa for the vacant 115-pound title. And then you have the karate hottie herself, Michelle Watterson, will defend her atomweight title once again against Yasuka Tamada. And besides the main two fights, Dave, what fight are you looking forward to most here on the Invicta 8 card, which, to remind people, will be shown exclusively on the UFC Fight Pass?
There's a couple things I want to look at. There's a couple things I'm looking forward to. I want to see how the Roxy LaRosa fight goes. I definitely want to see the Peggy Morgan fight. And the Charmaine Tweet, she was awesome when I was out there the last time. I'm interested in all of those to see how, especially the two that were on the Ultimate Fighter, to see how they've progressed since then. They have to know that this is a chance for them to look impressive and then get moved up into the Ultimate Fighting Championship. I'm also looking for a couple things to see. The pay-per-view stream wasn't awful before. I want to see how well it is on UFC Fight Pass. I'm very interested to see if it's just the UFC allowing the stream on Fight Pass, or if the UFC is, putting some muscle behind it a little bit. I'm interested to see what happens with some of these undercard fights too, because Julie Kedzie is the new matchmaker. So I'm interested to see how well she's jumped into her job as a matchmaker, how evenly some of these fights that we don't know too many people, see how well those are actually matched up. Because this is I think it's an understated point, but this is a big step for Invicta. And, the right things go down this weekend, we could be talking about Invicta in a whole new light come this time next week.
And also, speaking of Julie Kedzie as matchmaker, she will be the color commentator next side Michael Chiavello for this broadcast. So that will be an interesting thing. Not only, she's given her experience being a former professional fighter herself, she's also giving insight as the one who put all these fights together. And I don't know if the UFC's ever done anything like that, putting kind of one of their officials or top people in a position, but Invicta's doing it, and I actually think that will make for an interesting broadcast. Michael Chevelle is great, but adding Kenzie from two different aspects is, I think, very interesting and somewhat of a bold move by Invicta.
Yeah, well, you know why that's a great move to put Julie Kedzie on? I'm going to tell you why. Because it means that King Mo and Miesha Tate aren't on there because they were hideous. Did you listen to the last one?
Yeah, King Mo definitely is not ready for being a broadcaster, but Miesha Tate wasn't bad. It's just the fact that she had to be constantly set up. She had to constantly, hey, Miesha, what do you think about this? Instead of kind of jumping in. And that was really the only bad thing, I as a fellow broadcaster, that I have to say about Miesha. But, yeah, King Mo was definitely, he was not getting the picture, I don't think, of how it works.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to bring up a point because you brought it up. You said that, like, the UFC doesn't do, they don't ever put their, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't ever put their high-level guys, in a position of commentary. If you go on Fight Pass, and I'm trying to find it, I think it was, Henderson Dos Anjos. They actually did some interviews, like leading up to some cards, with Joe Silva and Sean Shelby. And they previewed a couple of the cards that are coming up. And it's only like 2 or 3 minutes long, but it's very good to hear the insight from those guys who do the matchmaking. It was, if I can find it, I'll post a link on our Facebook. But it was definitely something where you were like, yeah, they should do more with these two because it was pretty good. Here, Fight Night Bangor watch list. UFC matchmaker Joe Silva and Sean Shelby discuss the skills and intangibles of some of the fighters taking the octagon in Bangor, Maine. So, if you got Fight Pass, check it out. It's pretty good.
All right, now, as far as myself, I'm definitely looking, I think, most, besides the main two fights, to the Roxanne Modafferi fight against Tara LaRosa. Both are veterans of the sport. Both always seem to be entertaining in victory or defeat, and I think that just from a standpoint of excitement should be good, and I think for Invicta it means a lot to get veterans like that and have them on the card, and kind of helps bolster their roster a little bit, so I think that's a really good move. And getting into the main two fights, we've seen Concapa fight in Invicta before. I think Stephanie Aging is coming over from the XFC organization, and I don't think she's fought in Invicta yet, but she was looking to be in XFC's 115-pound strawweight champion. So even though she's only 4-1, she was already talked about being a champion in another organization. So with a lot of the strawweights gone, leaving for the UFC, with the UFC purchasing from Invicta, it's not like Invicta had a huge, roster to go in there and have somebody be their champion. So being able to get Stephanie, I think, is a big deal. Taking on one of the girls who didn't get picked up in Concapa, and I think, I don't know, that should be. I haven't seen a lot of Aging. I've just seen highlights and stuff, but she looks pretty solid. And Concapa, she had a really solid debut in Invicta in her last fight. So that one should be interesting, and that one kind of could go either way, I think, because I think both are very talented.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was a strawweight fight. But since that I'm not even gonna. Since the one that starts with a K, since she didn't get brought into the Ultimate Fighter and didn't get brought into into the UFC, she may come in with quite the chip on her shoulder to prove a point that maybe she should have been in the house. Maybe she should be on that roster, not Invicta's roster. So she's definitely going to have something to prove in this fight. And, I change. That's my pick for fight of the evening.
Well,
true or false? Does Dana White show up to Invicta?
No, I don't think so, because he will probably be in Connecticut.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
And I know it's the next day, but I think he just flies back to Vegas. I don't think he flies to Kansas City.
So let's get this straight. Silva Arlovski's on Fight Pass on Saturday evening. Wait a second. No. Okay. Fox Sports 1, there's a card. Then there's a Fight Pass on the same. Oh, wait. Never mind. I digress. Go on. Live show goof up. I made a mistake.
It's no
The
problem.
Arlovski Bigfoot is next week.
Yes, it is.
I'm an idiot.
That's okay. It's the Jacare Mousasi this weekend.
That is correct.
No, I'm just thinking with Dana White not wanting to travel as much, he already said that. I just think that, he's flying to Connecticut for the week and then to either fly in the morning to go from Connecticut to Kansas City. I could be wrong. He could show up. I'm not going to, it's not completely improbable that he would show up. I don't think he will. That's just my gut thoughts. But to the main event, the Karate Hottie once again will defend her atomweight title, and she is taking on a relatively unknown to most people here in America, and Yasuka Tamada. And looking over, Tamada definitely has a lot of credentials. She is 15-3 so far, or 15-8 rather in her career, 3 draws. Of those 15 career victories, how do you like 13 decisions, Dave?
Yes.
And she will be making her Invicta debut. Between 2010 and 2012, Dave, she fought mainly for the Jules promotion. She had 4 consecutive losses. Since that point, she has rattled off 3 consecutive victories, one of those being one of her 2 career finish victories. But she has not fought since August of last year. So I think this has all the makings of the Karate Hottie defending her title. You have over a year layoff. You have someone maybe not fighting as great as competition as Michelle Waterson, and also you have the not finishing factor. And if you look at the Karate Hottie, that's one of the reasons why. Obviously, the name, she's an attractive girl, she's been the champion, but she's been in there and going there and getting a lot of finishes. Of her 11 career victories, 7 submissions. She also has 2 knockouts, and that's another reason why people like her. She goes in there and gets finishes, and as this fight goes on, it may favor Yasuka Tamada, but I think the Karate Hottie is gonna roll right through her. To be honest, I think this is going to be a very dominant performance and another title defense for her.
Yeah. I go back and forth on this, Jim. The Karate Hottie is the atomweight champion. You can't deny that. And I think in this fight she steamrolls Tamada. But my question, and I posed this to other people too, is it necessary for Invicta to have an atomweight champion? The reason I ask that is because you just went through the credentials. Has Tamada earned a title shot in this promotion? I mean, I don't know how to do it. But it's like, if they even just did rankings and, they said that Waterson is the #1 ranked atomweight in all of Invicta, that's just like being the champion. But it's just, I don't know. I don't think, it drives me crazy. I'll say that much. Because she hasn't earned the title shot. Everybody just was crying that Joe Soto got the title shot that he didn't earn. Well, what about this young lady or old lady?
Well, it's not as big a deal if it isn't the UFC and people don't cry about it. But we'll see. Maybe we're proven wrong, Dave. But I think this is a fight to kind of establish Michelle Waterson as the face of Invicta. I really think that it is, because basically Invicta will only have 105 and 125 and I guess a little bit 145 to really go out there and market and try to make those divisions the best they can, because the UFC is going to take a lot of their top talent at 115 and 135 once they realize how good those girls are. So, those divisions are going to be really depleted and are always going to be depleted, and it's going to be shuffling really quick. But 105 and 125, they can really kind of make their mark with those two divisions, and that's why I think one of the reasons we didn't see Barb Honchak on this card is because they really wanted to establish kind of that 105 with Michelle and kind of give Barb Honchak her due as the sole main event in the next card.
Yep.
That's just me, but
I agree.
all right, let's get off Invicta. Let's get a little Bellator action as Bellator starts their season here for the fall. Season 11 coming up for Bellator. Bellator 123 will be their kickoff card. It will be in Uncasville, Connecticut for Bellator 123. 4 fights shown on the main card. The 3 non-title fights before the main event. Czech Congo against LeVar Johnson. You also have Bobby Lashley making his Bellator debut and kind of returned to MMA. He kind of was off MMA for a while. He will be taking on Josh Burns. You also have King Mo against Dustin Jacoby, and the main event of Pat Curran and Patricio Pitbull for the second time. Now, before we get to the main event, Dave, looking over this, I guess you could call it somewhat of a star-studded card. You got Czech Congo, LeVar Johnson, which I believe the loser probably gets cut. Both have kind of had their ups and downs in the organization, but Congo is an older guy. He had a shot at winning the heavyweight tournament, couldn't do it, and I don't think he has that many more fights left of him. He goes out there and loses to LeVar Johnson. I don't think you need him anymore. Conversely, Johnson, yeah, he's an exciting guy, but if he keeps on getting beat, you can't have him around anymore. And Bobby Lashley, this is a guy that they're hoping on can be good. I don't know. He's taking a guy whose career record's 8-7, so he's not fighting somebody that's extremely talented or anything here. So, that should be a fight he should win. It's just how good will he look? And then King Mo should beat Dustin Jacoby. If King Mo doesn't beat Justin Jacoby, we already said King Mo is probably a bust for Bellator, Dave. But if he can't beat Dustin Jacoby, King Mo is a huge bust for the organization, and to me loses just about all star power or name power anymore if he loses to Dustin Jacoby.
Yeah, those were all thoughts that I was going to throw out as well. The one guy that's on the undercard that I am excited is that Brendan Ward. He's a nice little talent that they got hit away on the undercard. I mean, that's a fight that I would search out on the prelims to watch. I think he would steamroll through his opponent. Why they're giving Bobby Lashley a chance, I have no idea. I don't know if that's a Coker thing or a Rebney thing. I don't know. Curran Pitbull is going to be awesome. It was awesome it's awesome the last time. It's going to be awesome this time. One tongue-in-cheek question. Now that Scott Coker's in charge, do you think the website will be any better?
I hope so, because you mentioned that Brandon Ward's on the undercard. This is actually a Bellator undercard you can look at and you recognize names, Dave, which is you usually can't say because they draw talent from the area they go in. But you look at this undercard, like you said, Brendan Ward's take on Tamden McCrory, who has UFC experience. You got Dan Kramer against Perry Filkins. Both those guys have fought in multiple Bellator events. You got Matt Bassett, who beat Diego Nunes not too long ago. He's taking on Scott Cleave, who has Bellator experience. So, I mean, you got some notable names on this undercard, and, you got guys that I think some of those guys could be on the main card if it wasn't for the fact that they're trying to, once again, establish King Mo and Bobby Lashley and some of these other guys in Czech Congo, because I think those are probably going to end up being better fights than, the big main event, maybe.
Yeah.
Or besides the other main card fights, I should say, because the main event will be good.
Yeah, but let's remember this too, Jim. You're going to Bellator 124 the week after, and aside from your pal Shamir Garcia. That's your pal.
And of course, Jason Fisher, who we interviewed this week. And if you are listening to the audio version, you'll hear the interview shortly. And for the live listeners, go onto our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BeyondTheCagePodcast, and we talk with Jason Fisher, who will be fighting at Bellator 124 in Plymouth, Michigan. He'll be taking on veteran of the sport, Tony Hervey. So Jason Fisher just signed a brand new deal. Of course, he's the training partner of Darren Cruikshank, who we've had on multiple times. So definitely hear that interview. It was a great interview I had this morning with Jason Fisher. So thanks for the plug there, Dave, and reminding me that we had Jason Fisher on the show. But yes, we're trying to work on getting Shamir back on the show, who I actually went to high school with, as well as Darren. So, but anyways, yes, continue with your point out of my cheap plug.
Yeah, so it looks like you said Jason Fisher's fighting who?
He'll be fighting Tony Hervey on
Yeah.
the Bellator card, and they don't
Yeah.
even like list that fight on the
Yeah.
website or anything, but it's happening. I assure you.
Not not even listed. No, my point was that as of looking at the computer right now, there's nobody that you've heard of aside from Garcia, which you know, and Jason Fisher. There's not one name on. I think this one is more of an instance of everybody's healthy. Let's rock it out type of thing. That's why the undercard's so good. Which I don't really care why the undercard is good as long as it's good. I could care less how they got the undercard stacked as long as it's stacked. So I'm good with it. But yeah,
I think for one of the few times it actually gives the people to tune into Spike.com. Because most of the
yeah,
time you're tuning into Spike.com, you're not really seeing you're not seeing anybody and really the only reason you're tuning is because, they throw the fourth of the quarterfinals on the prelim card because there's some type of title fight or other big main event, not allowing that tournament fight to be on the main card. So I think you got a reason to tune in this week. But let's get to that main event, Dave. Pat Curran, Patricio Pitbull 2. The first time around, very, very close fight. Pat Curran was able to win a decision. Instead of giving Pitbull the arena rematch, which I think he should have gotten, he had to go through another tournament, and he did. He went through another tournament, rolled through the competition, got his 3 wins, and now he's back here against Pat Curran once again. And I think it's going to be close once again, Dave. It's really going to be, can Pat Curran keep on his game plan of sticking and moving and avoiding the power of Patricio Pitbull, and can his power and conditioning last another 25 minutes again? That's really the key to this fight because Curran's not a guy that really uses his wrestling too much, and he didn't really use it the first time, so I don't see him going there and trying to tie Pitbull up. Pitbull's not the greatest of wrestlers, Dave, but he does have solid jiu-jitsu and decent takedown defense. And he's a really short and stocky guy at 145, and I think that low center of gravity, makes him hard to take down. So this is going to be another razor thin fight. It's just going to be who can implement the game plan and who can kind of touch the guy more. I think that's what it comes down to.
I think that this ends up being a point fight that it's probably going to get to a decision, but if somebody can touch the other guy and change the outlook of a round, we could get a TKO finish. I don't think we'll see a one-punch knockout. We could see a submission, but it's hard to. What we saw in the first fight, it's hard to imagine that we won't see that again come Friday night.
All right, Dave, let's move on here and let's get to also on Friday night, and we'll also be in Connecticut, and that's UFC Fight Night 50, the main event being Ronaldo Jacare Souza against Gegard Mousasi, and this looks to be a really big fight. And I saw something, Dave, on Facebook. Somebody put out, hey, there's 2 fights on Friday. Which one are you going to watch? And I think if the DVR didn't exist, you probably would have to choose, but obviously I'll have both on the DVR, so I'm not going to miss any, and I'm going to watch both. But if you had to choose, if you only could just watch one live, which one are you choosing to watch live?
Are you kidding me?
Is this even a serious question, or is it always the UFC no matter what?
No. I'm watching the UFC. I would watch the UFC because there's more talent, and there's more talent on this card, and I think that there's lots of stuff. There's everything you need on the UFC card. It's got names that are looking for title shots. It's got guys that are looking to make a name for themselves. There's 6 fights on the main card, and 2 of them don't have ranked guys in it. And the 2 are the Joe Lozon, Michael Chiesa, and the Mitrione Lewis. And those are big fights in those respective divisions. So if that was a serious question, I'll be watching the UFC.
And I would as well. let's get to the first fight of the evening at 125 pounds as John Moraga takes on Justin Scoggins. Now, before we even get to the breakdown, Dave, it's awesome that Moraga was able to come back that quickly after the broken nose and everything that he received at the hands of John Dodson in his last fight. I mean, this is just only a couple months since that, so he must have some good cartilage still up in their nose to come back and get back on camp and come into this fight against Justin Scoggins.
Am I a jerk to say that if you're Justin Scoggins, you throw jabs at his nose and see if you can break it?
I think that's a safe style strategy. Try to really pummel the middle of the face. I don't think that's anything there because it could happen again. I mean, I think once you break your nose once, it's more apt to happen again.
I mean, like, it would be interesting, like, if we talk to maybe we get somebody like Cody or Darren or somebody. Yeah, somebody that we've got a French, maybe Brian could help us out. Like, is there like an unwritten rule, or is that just like, if you know that guy's got he's had terrible nose breaks or whatever, like, is it an unwritten rule, like in the first round, like you kind of let it be, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these unwritten rules in all these other sports. Maybe there's one in MMA. I don't know.
Right, and I don't know. I think it's fair game, but looking at Justin Scoggins in this fight, he is 2-1 in the UFC. His last fight was a loss to Dustin Ortiz at the Ultimate Fighter 19 finale, and overall in his career, he is 9-1. Now, coming into the Ortiz fight, this guy was kind of like the hot prospect here at 125 and actually was favored against Dustin Ortiz, who probably had fought better competition, but he was favored. He showed that he kind of has a very good submission game, maybe not as great in the stand-up department, and I think that's what this battle is going to be. You know, John Moraga is a guy who so far in his career is 3-2 in the UFC, lost his last fight, got knocked out in the second round, and, you know, even though he kind of got schooled a little bit against John Dodson, he's very much still a very excellent striker. He's very big for the weight class, and I think for Scoggins, if he cannot get this fight to the ground and draw John Moraga into a grappling battle, I don't think he has the tools necessary to compete with John Moraga on the feet. You know, he's a very talented striker, and Scoggins has to go in there and do that right away. And I think Scoggins can maybe do it early, but as we saw in the Ortiz fight, I think he kind of wore down a little bit, and I think Moraga, who has that experience, you know, who's gone almost 25 minutes before, I think that's something to consider, and I would favor John Moraga, but I think Scoggins, because of his submission background, can make this interesting.
Hey, before I get into it, do yourself a favor and Google Justin Scoggins' Wikipedia page. It's the worst Wikipedia page I've ever seen. Anyway, I think that this comes down to the competition that Moraga has faced. You know, kind of not the bright lights, but he's been in there with Dodson, Mighty Mouse, Kerry Azau. He's been in there with some big names, and he's held himself, you know, picked up some big wins. And, you know, I think, like you said, that Scoggins can make it interesting, but I just think Moraga, just overall time in the octagon competition that he's faced, I just think that helps Moraga in this fight. I won't disclose my pick yet.
All right, the next fight of the evening will be in the featherweight division as Nick Lentz will take on Charles Oliveira. Looking at Oliveira, he is 4-2 since moving down to 145 pounds from 155. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. His last fight, he defeated Hatsu Hiyoki at Fight Night 43 by submission, and the majority of his wins in his career are by submission, 18-4 overall in his career. And I think he has something like 15 submissions, Dave, in his career, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at his opponent, Nick Lentz, much like Oliveira, used to fight at 155, since dropping down to 145. He is 4-1. His last fight was a victory over Manny Gambirian back at Fight Night 40, and his overall record is 25-6, 2 draws. He also has a no contest thrown in there. And Standing up, we know Oliveira is still very raw, but can be explosive, a little wild at times. And Lentz, a guy that I believe was an All-American at the University of Minnesota wrestling, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely has a wrestling background. He has kind of developed into a pretty solid striker. Now, we saw against the Chad Mendes fight that, he actually probably even had better stand-up than Chad Mendes on that particular night. Very good combinations. Maybe not the greatest power, even though he's dropped down a division, but he's definitely grown leaps and bounds in that category. And to me, the X factor of this fight is the grappling. Even though Lentz has that great grappling background, Oliveira is ridiculous on the ground. I mean, Hatsu Hioki was a jiu-jitsu black belt, had never been submitted in his career, over 30 professional fights, and Oliveira was able to go out there and submit him. So I have the confidence to believe that Oliveira can submit anyone in this division. I mean, doing what he did against Hioki, if he can submit Hioki, I think he can submit anybody. So to me, he can absolutely submit Nick Lentz if this fight goes to the ground. I have no doubt in my mind that can happen. Will it happen? I don't know. But I think for Lentz, don't even play into that. Don't even give Oliveira a chance to go after your neck or your arm or your leg or any type of limb. Keep this thing standing, look for openings, stay with strength combinations, and I think you can pick up a victory that way. Because why even tempt fate? This kid has shown that he can submit anyone.
Yeah, Oliveira has 11 submissions in his career.
So it'd be 11 of 18. Okay, I was a little off, but it seems like he's had 15.
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah, Oliveira is ridiculous on the ground. Absolutely ridiculous. Like you said, it's probably best to fight just like this the whole time. Just cover yourself. Don't let him grab anything. If he's gonna beat you, let him beat you via leg kicks or something. No, I'm pretty impressed with Oliveira. He had a nice little streak. He went in there against Cub Swanson, lost. Went in there against Frankie Edgar, lost. But then he's gone right back in, got right back in there, right back to submission victories, 2 in a row, like you said. And I like these guys when they lose, they go back, they fix stuff, and now he's back on a roll. And Nick Lentz, is beating Nick Lentz going to get Oliveira to a title shot? No, probably not. But 3 in a row against three in a row, and hopefully 3 finishes in a row, I'm sure will get you noticed and get you into that top 15. And I think anybody at all in the division doesn't want to. No, there's not one person in the division that wants to fight Charles Oliveira.
Let's get to the next fight of the evening, which will be at 155 pounds, as Joe Lauzon will take former Ultimate Fighter winner Michael Chiesa on in this bout. Looking at the former Tough winner, Chiesa, 11-1 in his career so far, 4-1 in the UFC, riding a 2-fight winning streak. His last fight was a victory over Francisco Trinaldo at UFC 173, and the majority of his wins in his career are by submission. Looking at Joe Lauzon, 10-6 in the UFC. His last fight broke a 2-fight losing streak as Lauzon defeated Mac Danzig back at UFC on Fox 9. And I think it's every one of his wins, Dave, are by finishes, Mr. Joe Lauzon, either by knockout or submission. So with the exception of the last one, I think that was his first decision victory. So this guy is exciting. He can, anywhere the fight goes, he can somehow beat you. He is one of those guys where he may not win every fight, but he makes it exciting and he puts you through a war. 22. And that is what is in store for Michael Chiesa, is a war. And Chiesa has to be ready for wherever the fight goes, that Joe Lauzon can do something crazy to finish this fight. And standing up, I would say Lauzon is a little more refined, has a little more power. Grappling-wise, I think they're pretty equal. I wouldn't say one is that much better than the other, but Chiesa's a little bigger than Lauzon, and I think that may play a factor coming into the grappling game. And yeah, Dave, as you were saying, 22 of his 23 career victories are by finish. So this is going to be a fun fight. It's going to be an exciting fight, and I think Joe Lauzon is one of those guys that if you can go and get past Lauzon, usually bright and bigger things are ahead of you if you can beat Mr. J-Lo.
Yeah, he's a gatekeeper, I think, in that division, but he's a oh, excuse me. I've never sneezed on an episode ever.
That's what happens with a live show, people. Sneezes happen.
Oh man. Now my
Now
train
you
of
lost your
thought.
train of thought. You're talking about Joe Lazone being a gatekeeper.
He's a gatekeeper, but he's a gatekeeper that nobody wants to fight. If you can beat him, it's gonna do good things for you. That's a big if, though. That's a real big if. This guy's tough all over the place. Not only does he have 22 finishes, but he's only lost 9 times in his career, and he's been in the UFC or part of Zuffa for how long? Since 2000.
Ultimate Fighter Season 5.
Yeah, since 2007. So yeah, this is kind of a pick'em fight, actually. Chiesa 2-fight winning streak coming in, but I think at a certain point, getting into the scraps that Joe Lozon is always in, he's got to pay the price at some point with his body deteriorating and whatnot. And hopefully that this isn't the beginning of that, but it very well could be. 2007 to 2014, that's a long time in fighting years.
And that's just his UFC fights. That's not even the years he fought before the organization. So he's been doing this for about 10 years now?
Yep.
That's 10 years of wars.
Let's 2000. His first fight was February of 2004. His first pro fight.
So he's been fighting for 10 years professionally.
Yep.
Well, let's get to the next fight of the evening in the heavyweight division, as Matt Mitrione will take on Derek Lewis. Looking at Mitrione, he is 7-3 in the UFC, and coincidentally, that is his career record. His last fight was a victory against Sean Jordan at the Tough China finale back in March. And looking at Derek Lewis, just 2-0 in the UFC. His last fight was a victory over Guito Insante at the Tough 19 finale card. Both of those victories so far in the UFC are by knockout. 11-2 so far in his career with 1 no contest. I really think, Dave, that this is going to be a fight that gets finished. It's 2 big dudes going out there and swinging. It's just going to be who lasts longer. I really think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, Derek Lewis looks super impressive at Tough 19. This dude is enormous. And one thing, if you go back and watch the Tough 19 card, it's on my DVR still. He could have chased his opponent around the cage, but he didn't. He knows he's got power in both hands, and he's not going to chase Mitrione around and look and search for that knockout. He'll sit back and wait because he knows he only needs 1 punch. So it could start out pretty boring, but I have a feeling it's not going to finish boring. One of the X factors, Jim, I think you got to think about is Matt Mitrione was scheduled to fight at UFC 175 the night prior to Derek Lewis's fight. He was supposed to fight Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve had his problems. They canceled the fight. I wonder how that plays into the mind of a fighter. He was trying to peak at a particular time. He was ready to get in there, do his thing, and then all of that gets pulled away. And now he had to forget everything about Stefan Struve, because I don't think this is going to be a grappling affair, which I thought that the Struve fight might be.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So now he has to completely change game plans, and he still never got that payoff. You know what I mean? Like, he never got to actually get in the cage and see if what he worked on for those 8 weeks actually, improved. So I wonder how that affects somebody like a Mitrione.
But he got paid, unlike Henan Brow.
True. Speaking of pay, good. That was good. Our good friend Ray Flores from ESPN 1000, he was busy this week, and he got a chance to interview both Matt Mitrione and a guy we're going to talk about in just a minute, Alistair Overeem. I'm going to post a link on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Beyond the Cage podcast, and you can listen to both interviews. Ray told me he actually gets into a fight with Overeem on the Overeem interview, and they talk fighter pay with Matt Mitrione. So I'm actually going to click on the link right now, and boom, posted.
All right, well, let's get to that fight as Alistair Overeem will take on Ben Rothwell in the heavyweight division. And looking at Alistair Overeem since coming over to the UFC, he is just 2-2. His last fight was a victory over Frank Mir at UFC 169, and his overall record 37-13 with a no contest. Looking at Ben Rothwell, he has kind of traded wins and losses so far in the UFC, as he is just 3-3. His last fight was a victory over Brandon Vera at UFC 164. His overall record 33-9. And even though both these guys have a lot of fights, Dave, they've been around for a very long time. Ben Rothwell is one of those guys who's just so hit and miss. It's really hard to kind of bank on him having a good performance or really looking good. And to be honest, I always thought he kind of had somewhat of a glass jaw. And you're going up against a guy in Alistair Overeem who, TRT or no TRT, just hits like a truck. I mean, it doesn't matter what he hits you with. He hits hard, and he's just a very brutal guy, and he can keep it coming. And I just think this has all the makings of a brutal finish by Alistair Overeem against Ben Rothwell. I just don't really see, even if it goes long, Dave, Ben Rothwell has showed that he's had horrible conditioning in a lot of his fights. So I can't even say if he can weather the early storm, because I just don't see how, even if he could, what he does afterwards, because I think he would be so drained out, even if Overeem is, that I don't think he could really capitalize on it. I just don't see how Ben Rothwell beats Alistair Overeem at this stage in his career.
Yeah, this has to be the first ever fight of two guys coming back off of suspension.
Now, yeah, there's that too. You know,
So,
you have another thing, and if you look at Overeem, his suspension wasn't nearly as long as Rothwell's. I mean, Rothwell hasn't fought since, you know, that card that the poster's behind me there, 164. That was over a year ago.
Yeah, over a year. Yeah. To me, this is one of those fights where, when I look at it, neither one of these guys is going to beat Kane. Neither one of these guys is going to beat Verdum. Neither one of these guys is going to beat anybody in the top 5 of the heavyweight division. This is a fight that gets added on here to help bolster the card a little bit. And I think Overeem should win this fight. But in the heavyweight division, thinking usually doesn't equate to much. You know, I think Ben Rothwell can knock out Alistair Overeem. I just think there's a much larger chance that Overeem knocks out Rothwell. And, yeah, this is for the TRT heavyweight championship of the world.
I just do want to mention real quick, Dave, that Alistair Overeem actually did beat Fabricio Verdum already. I just wanted to throw that in you back in 2011.
That's fine. Why are you bringing up stuff in the past?
Well, I'm saying you said that he couldn't beat Verdum. I was like, well, he already beat Verdum. I don't think he can beat Kane, though. I just, you know, usually you correct me, but I was going to correct you this time. That's all.
All right.
All right, let's get to the main event of the evening. At 185 pounds, this former Strikeforce middleweight champion will take on former Strikeforce light heavyweight champion Gegard Mousasi. And looking at this fight, Dave, Jacare Mousasi, you know, at one time, 2 of the Strikeforce champions, and I believe they were champions right around the same time. This is a huge deal. The winner, I think just because he already lost to Machida, I don't think Mousasi gets a title shot if he wins. I think Jacare does. Mousasi probably would have to get one more fight. I think that's really the only difference. But these two are, you know, great contrasts in styles. You have the kind of more slender and lankier Gegard Mousasi, who's very cerebral in his attack, very good counter and surprising power. And then you have Jacare Souza, who's just an absolute beast at 185 pounds, who can go in there, not only out-muscle you, but is a many time over world jiu-jitsu champion. And, you know, it's one, we talk about Oliveira, you know, submitting anyone. Not only can Jacare submit you, I think he can, like, break your arm or leg in the process just because he's so much of a beast. And this is a fight where if Jacare can go in there, assert his will, take this fight to the ground, Mousasi has no chance. But if Jacare comes in here looking flat, Mousasi's able to circle, avoid the takedown, and use his takedown defense and get away, use his great jab and leg kicks, this is going to be Mousasi all day. And we have a great contrast of styles. It's a big-time fight, and I think it's going to be an exciting fight for the main event here in Connecticut.
Yeah, I definitely think that this fight, I think this is an underrated fight. I think some people might be sleeping on this just a little bit. But, I think Jacare, the one thing, like you said, he can submit you from anywhere. He can break your arm. He can break your toe. He can do whatever he wants. But, in recent times, in the last year or two, he's even started to throw his hands a little bit more and been successful at throwing hands. So, if the grappling's not working and he decides to throw hands, I think Jacare has might have the advantage there. The one kind of X factor that we've been bringing up is both of these guys have been in championship fights. They've both been in 5-round fights. Both of these guys have been there and done that. So, is this one of those? I don't think this is one of those fights where they come out, they're both nervous that they're in the main event, the whole lead up to the fight and all that kind of stuff, and we get, kind of a stale fight. I think this is one where both guys come in, they see what each other's doing, and then they get to work. And I'm going to say it ahead of time that this is a candidate for fight of the year. It really could be.
Now, of course, I got to mention, of course, Gegard Mousasi has already beat Jacare Souza. That was all the way back in September of 2008, back in the Dream organization, where Mousasi was able to knock out Jacare in the first round. Now, since that time, that's 6 years ago. Both fighters has obviously evolved, but Jacare, like you said, his stand-up has gotten pretty good. He's finished a couple people with his hands now. He's not simply just a jiu-jitsu player. Back in 2006, he was very much so just a jiu-jitsu guy, whereas we all know Mousasi, is a Dutch kickboxing champion, still has those skills. He has a lot of submission victories to his credit, too, that being Mousasi, but he's not, a world jiu-jitsu champion like Jacare is. He's very good using submissions in MMA, but there's a big gap in in terms of experience with grappling, and both fighters have evolved, and I think it's going to be a lot closer the second time around. And I don't think we see a first-round finish. I think we see a finish. I think that's very likely, Dave, but I don't think we see it in the first round. And I think Jacare is going to have a lot more, competitive. It's going to be a lot more closer fight this time around. And I can't wait for it. Do you have any final thoughts before we get to picks?
Yeah, I just had a question. Do you remember the Bristol Morunde fight with Jacare when we were there for Tate Rousey?
I do remember that fight. That was a fight where he went out there and dominated pretty thoroughly, if I'm not mistaken, before he eventually worked in that arm triangle choke there.
Yeah, what I was getting at was, that was a pretty crazy night. There was a lot of big fights, but I thought that he worked his stand-up pretty well in that, and then that led to the arm triangle chokes, which, there may only be 2 victories via his striking, but that was one where his striking kind of set up that arm triangle, and, just goes to show that it's always improving, his striking.
Yeah, and really, to me, it's really started improving when he fought Tim Kennedy in 2010. And since that time, he's only lost 1 fight since 2010, and that was a unanimous decision loss to Luke Rockhold. That's his only loss in 4 years. So that's not a bad guy to lose to either. So very good fight. And with that said, Dave, let's get to picks. The first fight of the evening at 125 pounds, John Moraga against Justin Scoggins. I think Scoggins has a chance. I think he will make it maybe a little closer than some people think, but I'm going to go with the experience of John Moraga in this one.
Yeah, experience is key. I'll take Moraga for the victory. Ooh, that rhymed.
Nick Lentz against Charles Oliveira at 145 pounds. Another close fight, but I think Lentz will be able to stave off the ground game from Oliveira, work his improving stand-up game, and give me the man known as the Carney to win this one.
I'm going to go with Oliveira. There you go.
At 155 pounds, Joe Lauzon against Michael Chiesa. I think, once again, Joe Lauzon's going to be in a war. It's going to be a fun fight, and man, this one's close, but I don't know if he is officially the underdog. I wouldn't be surprised if he is, but I'm going to go Michael Chiesa in this one. I think his size and length is going to be a lot for Lauzon to handle, and I'm going to go with the man from Washington State to win.
I hope this isn't the downfall of Joe Lauzon, but I am going to agree with you and pick Michael Chiesa for the victory.
Matt Mitrione against Derek Lewis at heavyweight. I think this is going to be a very fun fight. Somebody's probably going to get finished, but Matt Mitrione has a little more experience in the UFC, and I think a little more refined on the feet. He's not just simply quite a brawler, so I'm going to go with the little more refined skills of Matt Mitrione to win.
No way. Derek Lewis all the way. What do you say?
Main event. We'll see. He obviously has a chance to win. Co-main event of the evening, Alistair Overeem against Ben Rothwell. I think you and I both made our voices pretty clear in the breakdown. I just don't see how Rothwell wins, so give me Ubereem to win this one.
Yeah, you froze on my end. There's just a picture of you frozen there. Anyway, I take Alistair Overeem for the victory.
All right, I'll say it again if it didn't come through, but I'm picking Alistair Overeem. Main event of the evening, Jacare against Gegard Mousasi for the second time. I think it's going to be a lot different, and as fans know of the show, Dave and I are huge fans of Jacare, and maybe unless he gets against Chris Weidman, maybe then I will pick against them. But until then, Dave, give me Jacare, and I'm going to take off the mic for a second to do this to exclude my point.
There you go.
There I go. All right, Dave, who do you got?
I am going to take Jacare as well. I did that already. I did the whole clapping thing. That was so 1998. But there you go.
Right. Thank you. I think they just called on my phone. I see 1998 calling. All right, let's end the show here, wrap it up. Dave is on Twitter at VigilanteJuice. I am on Twitter at Jim Graham. Once again, I'm plugging our interview with Jason Fisher. Had a great time talking to Jason all about his fight against Tony Hervey at Bellator 124 next Friday here in Michigan at CompuWare Arena. So definitely listen to that. It'll be on the audio version of the show, so if you're listening to the audio version, you're going to hear it coming up shortly. If you're watching us live or watching the video on demand version, youtube.com/BeyondTheCage podcast. You'll see Jason Fisher's interview right there for Bellator 124. It was nice talking with him. Dave, any final thoughts on the show?
Stay tuned to Beyond the Cage on all of our platforms. We got lots and lots and lots and lots of interviews lined up in the next month and a half. So stay tuned.
I would be remiss not to mention our friends at VigilanteMMA.com, our friends at MMAinsider.net, MMAforlife.ca, all the guys doing the regional stuff here in the Midwest at BluegrassMMA.com. Of course, the great folks selling their great gear to help former Armed Forces veterans at TopRatedMMA.com. And, of course, the best memorabilia site for MMA on the Internet, MMASignaturesUSA.com. And, of course, our great friends and presenting sponsor, Fight Chicks, who will be live and in person selling that wonderful Fight Chicks gear at Invicta 8 this Saturday in Kansas City, Missouri.
Welcome
for
to
the
the
Juice, Dave Sadler. Yes, right. For the Juice, Dave Sadler. I'm your host, Jim Graham. Thanks again for listening to another edition of the Beyond the Cage podcast presented by Fight Chicks.